Hey, I'm Brian Gutierrez, and I'm here to share with you, the lovely audience, an important presentation that will endow you with a vital knowledge from the past, in the present, and for the future about the environment. We are talking about the BP oil spill. In 2010, the Gulf of Mexico held a BP oil rig which bursted, spewing 200 million gallons of crude oil into the sea. As you can imagine, it tragically devastated the ecosystem, and animals like the dolphins, the turtles, and the whales, and even many birds amongst countless other species were drenched in oil, causing virtually every living thing involved to develop major health issues and even death. After only 6 months after the spill, over 8,000 dead sea creatures washed up on the Louisiana coast, especially dolphins. To help supply some perspective, if we were to take all the dead dolphins that washed up on the beach and line them up side by side, there would be 1.5-mile line of dead dolphins. Not that we actually tried that. So while the oil spill sounds really bad for the dolphins, the turtles, and the delicate food web that nature relies on to keep the environmental cycle working well that keeps our planet healthy, you might ask why this should matter to humans. Well, fumes and other chemicals from the oil cause over 200,000 people to suffer from pneumonia, which causes respiratory problems such as coughing and trouble breathing, headaches, and dizziness that usually last up to 2 years or more. Another human concern due to this disaster involves our seafood. Before the spill in 2008, we could harvest 1.3 billion pounds of finfish and shellfish, and the Gulf produced nearly 75% of the domestic U.S. shrimp output. Thanks to the spill, many of our southern fisheries went out of business, and now we have to look for other sources of our seafood like Japan. Anyway, I digress. Let's hear from some of my friends to shed some more light on the subject. Elmer?
Thanks for passing it off to me, Brian. Let me give you guys a brief history on the subject matter. On April 20th, 2010, there occurred an explosion on the Deepwater Horizon oil rig, which is approximately 41 miles off the coast. The explosion killed 11 people and damaged cement covering the well. 1 year after the initial incident, BP claimed zero liability and began suing its conglomerate companies, blaming them for the cost-cutting decisions. On September 14th, 2011, BP is investigated by several private and public entities and found responsible for 21 of the 35 contributing causes. On November 15th, BP pleads guilty to criminal misconduct and up to date has paid around $40 billion in restitutions. Unfortunately, oil spills is nothing new to the Gulf of Mexico, because in June of 1979, there occurred an explosion on the Ixtoc oil rig, and that leaked for 9 months until finally being sealed.
Thanks for sharing, Elmer. I can see you've done some major research on this. Now, Mark, any recommendations on the cleanup process?
Of course, Brian, you know I have all the solutions. So let's talk about some of the methods used to alleviate the damage. So skimmer ships were used to remove oil from the surface of the water, but this only worked to a certain extent. The Coast Guard ended up burning some of the oil on the water's surface, but they had to stop because of the air pollution it created. Some of the BP workers placed sand-filled barriers along the shoreline to prevent the oil from spreading past the shoreline and contaminating the surrounding wildlife. Also, long floating barriers were anchored to the seafloor to corral the spilled oil and prevent it from spreading throughout the ocean. Finally, and maybe the most effective method, was BP spraying dispersants on slicks from oil crafts. So basically, dispersants are something which causes the oil to become solid and eventually drop to the sea floor. So in terms of effect on wildlife and ecosystems, the spill smothered coral reefs, contaminated seafood, and polluted national parks where various endangered species live. So my recommendation to you is to take into consideration and spread awareness regarding the controversy of offshore drilling and help the impact it has on wildlife, ecosystems, and ultimately on us.